give you a little bit of an overview of the agenda for today. So we'll start by introducing ourselves, and then AJ will speak about senior capstone. I'll speak about college prep, and these are our two classes that our seniors are taking this year. And then we'll have time at the end for a question and answer period. So we just do ask that you save your questions until the end of the presentation, just so that we can answer them all at the same time. And if people have the same question, then we can kind of group everything together. Feel free to use the chat to write questions in as you think of them, and then we're going to answer them at the end. So thanks so much for doing that. So we just wanted to get started by doing a little bit of an introduction of the two speakers for tonight. So here's me on the right. My name is Elizabeth, and I am the new graduate teaching assistant for ITA. So I am teaching the seniors in their college prep course. And AJ?
Yeah, hi, I'm AJ Daughtry Krill, back for another year. Good to see you all. I am the technology education lead, and that means that I work with the tech instructors on all the tech curriculum in Madison, but also I'm the lead teacher for the senior capstone course.
Great. And we have some other staff in the chat, so if you guys would like to introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining tonight's call. I'm sure all of you probably remember me because I was the previous graduate assistant, and I've returned to ITA as the Leadership and Career Services Specialist. So that means I teach leadership and career development. And I'll pass it on to Excel because I see him here.
Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody. Excel Williams, program coordinator for the ITA program, and yeah, I'm just here to hang out and check out the presentation and answer any questions that might come my way. So good evening, everybody, and thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. And that is a great reminder that you can address questions to any one of us here if anything comes up, and we can answer that in the question and answer portion. All right. So moving right along to senior capstone, I'll turn it over to AJ.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Like I said, it's really good to see you all. I'm very excited about our seniors this year, jumping into what we call senior capstone. And the goal of senior capstone is essentially to build an online portfolio, one step at a time between now and April 27th. So we started this past Saturday. Happy first day of fall. And students just started very small and simple, thinking about 3 independent projects that they will work on and complete this year. And they were to send me an email and someone in their family that will help hold them accountable. All of them did that, every single senior, and they did it really well. So some of you probably received those emails. That whole email situation is simply because if they get really behind, I know a good email to respond to, reply all, to get them back on track. But you might not ever get a reply to that email. Just know that I found the ideas that the seniors presented to be fascinating and wonderful, and I do think they're going to be successful. I also know that things will change as the year goes on, so they don't have to do the same 3 projects they said in their original email. That's just their ideas, and those ideas will change as time moves on and new experiences happen. So the portfolio will include an about me statement. So there's a lot of writing on the online portfolio. So a professional about me statement that I walk them through, a contact form. So it won't include their email, their home address, their phone number, or their or any other contact information. There will be a contact form. It's very professional, but it's also nice because it keeps any kind of pesky communications from happening, from bots and things like that. And then students will also either update their resume or use their current resume and import that into their portfolio. Those are going to happen early on in the entire year, and their 3 tech projects that they do on their own are due throughout the year. So on December 15th, the first one is due, February 18th, the second one's due, and April 9th, the final one is due. And the time period between April 9th and April 27th is for me to give them final feedback on their portfolios and them to polish the whole thing as one entity. So if you go to the next slide, I have an example. They all look different. They're very, very unique for each student. But this is one of our current tech instructors, Miguel. His portfolio, as you see, has hello, a bit about me. It's his about me statement. You can see the writing. I mean, that there is writing. I purposely made it small. You can also see that he has he's got a Photoshop project that he created that year. And he's also got a coding project that he made a video walking through the code. That was another project that he did, and he did one more. He's got his professional resume available and a contact form, so that, again, all interest in what he does or like a job he might apply to using this portfolio, it's all really clean communication. And we use the program Wix.com to build these online portfolios. So some students might do web design with like coding, but mostly we're just asking them to use Wix and build it as you go. So the big thing with senior capstone is it's a lot of self-driven work, and it has to all be 100% completed in order for students to graduate from ITA, to be complete in their work. There's no extraneous assignments or anything. It's just get the work done. So that's why it's 100%. And every student at this very moment is already at 100%. And they just have to maintain that throughout the year. I'm going to let Elizabeth talk about the next course that the seniors are participating in.
All right, thank you, AJ. So this is the other course that the seniors are participating in, which is college prep. And one of the biggest things that I have as an announcement for college prep is that seniors are expected to apply to UW-Madison by the early application deadline of November 1st. And that is coming up. That is a little over a month away. So we have already started in college prep to work on essays. We have drafted letter of recommendation templates for their teachers or other people in their life that they want to ask for a recommendation. Some students have already asked for these letters of recommendation, which is awesome. And we worked on essays during their summer residential experience. So they already have some drafts of those, but we're going to be diving deeper into those in the coming weeks at ITA Saturday sessions. We're also going to be talking about extracurricular activities that they should be adding to their applications, what major they might want to apply as, things like that. But the key is that they need to submit their application by November 1st. So we will be working with them. I will be working with them to get all of their materials together and reviewed and sent away by that date. The important thing with that as well is that there is a fee waiver thanks to ITA. So you definitely do not want to be paying the application fee to UW-Madison. It is waived through ITA and People. So just make sure that when your student is selecting all of their like affiliations within the application, and I've told them this too, that if it says, do you have a fee waiver, you say yes, and you should be able to select like ITA or People as an option. So don't pay that application fee. The next important thing after that application deadline has passed is that the FAFSA is opening. So there are some changes to the FAFSA this year that are still a little bit up in the air. That's why there's no priority deadline for the FAFSA this year, but we do know it will open sometime in December. I have already reached out to one of our contacts in the Office of Financial Aid to come and speak to the students about the FAFSA and financial aid in December. And she has already agreed to come and speak. So I wanted to let the parents know that this is something that I plan to invite you to as well. So what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to open up a poll for you guys, and you can answer these questions now, or we can send an email out with the link later and you can answer questions later. But it's just submitting any questions that you have about financial aid or the FAFSA that then we can pass along to our contact in the financial aid office, and then she can come and answer all those questions for you when she comes in person in December. So more details of that meeting to follow, but we will have time to take a look at that poll right after this slide. And the last thing that I just wanted to pop on this slide was graduation, which is June 1st. So mark your calendars. Okay, so here's that poll.
Elizabeth?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's a question. It says November 1st is the early admit deadline? Question mark?
Yeah, so November 1st is like the early application deadline for UW-Madison, but that is the date at which we expect all of our students to apply. This is because we want them to get their decisions back as soon as possible and have time to apply for other schools if they would like to have more options. Yeah, this is just an ITA expectation because you're required to apply to UW-Madison. Just get it out of the way by November 1st. And then also you're getting in to the eyes of those admissions officers sooner. So they're going to see you and you're going to have, there are more spots open if you apply early. So you have a better shot of getting into one of those spots. Thank you for asking. Yeah, could I just remind people though, we'll ask more questions and answer those at the end if that's okay. But thank you for asking that question. Yeah, so moving on then to that poll that I mentioned. So we can put this link in the chat, but there's also a QR code if you want to just scan it with your phone, and that should take you to this poll. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a second right here. So here's the QR code bigger. And you should be able to respond, and you can just type whatever you want to know about financial aid and the FAFSA right in here. You can do it now. We'll have a few minutes if you're interested in doing it now. I'm sorry, I think there's a plane flying overhead. But yeah, feel free to do it now. If not, you can ask questions as you have them, and we will pass along any questions to our liaison at the financial aid office. You can feel free to up and down vote questions as well if you have the same question. Yeah. So I'll just wait on this page for a little while. All right, so just in the interest of time, I am going to stop sharing my screen. However, that question is going to remain open for you guys. So if at any time you go to that link, you should be able to answer this question. And then I will pass along all of your questions to the financial aid office. All right, let me share the slides again. Okay, so here's the poll. All right, so now we're going to move into our question and answer portion. So this is just going to be moderated by the staff. So any questions that you have, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or you can pop them in the chat and someone will catch it and let us know.
Elizabeth, I see a question that's probably for you. It says, are ACT scores required for applying?
Yes, that is for me. Okay, great question. Thank you for asking. So if you're talking specifically about UW-Madison, UW-Madison is test optional through the spring of 2025. So you do not need to submit an ACT score with your application for this fall application cycle. If you feel like your ACT score is telling something that your application is not telling, like if you got a really stellar ACT score and maybe your GPA isn't that great, I would definitely submit those ACT scores to show the college admissions officers that you have the capabilities to take on college level coursework. However, if your ACT score isn't that great, it's okay. UW-Madison has put out a statement that they do not like have any bias if you submit it or if you don't. So great question.
Thank you. I asked that question. Thanks for that answer. So I guess what I'm hearing too is that it wouldn't look bad if you did not submit your ACT scores. I know there are a lot of colleges that are now not requiring it. My son does plan to retake it, but I don't think he'll take it and get scores by the November 1 deadline. So that was my concern. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it does not. They released a statement, and from the way I read it, it doesn't seem like they're going to penalize you for not submitting scores or like look at you in a more favorable regard if you do submit scores. So it's just a matter of if you choose to submit scores, that's fine. If you don't, it's also fine.
I did have another question. I went through the Common App with my son, and so in the essay portion of it, he's already had like a draft of his essay. Like you can choose an essay to answer, but I know that some colleges also have their own questions. How do you see that? Like, so for UW-Madison, there is a question that's not kind of like you can choose this question for all of the colleges that you're applying to. It's like its own personal question. Is there, I guess I didn't see where that's located in the Common App, but I know that you all are working with them on those essays. I don't know if I'm making sense, but so for instance, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, so there, he chose the one that I saw in the Common App was one that he chose that like all of the, it's like one essay question that would go to a group of the colleges who are all asking it. But then there's like the other question from UW-Madison, which is like, why do you want to go to UW-Madison or something around specifically UW-Madison, which I didn't see when we looked through the Common App together. I didn't see that in there. Is that like, how do we find what specific colleges are asking those very specific questions to them?
I may direct that question to Liliana because she's probably looked at the Common App more recently than I have, since she did this last year, but I plan to look at the Common App very soon, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I can answer this. So the Common App is great because you can, theoretically use one like base application for multiple schools. And
Yeah.
depending on the schools, they'll have their own specific requirements if they choose to include something a little bit additional. So UW-Madison is one of those schools that has their UW-Madison specific essay, which you're right, it does ask, why do you want to go to UW-Madison? And I think if I remember correctly from last year, that essay prompt is embedded like within the Common App as you go through the UW-Madison specific application within the Common App platform. So as you go along and fill out like your information and the students' involvements, et cetera, you'll eventually come to that essay prompt where you'll be able to submit your response.
Okay.
Just know that the essay prompt is going to be exactly the same as it reads on the UW-Madison website. So those should be matching up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I know that you all said too that you will be going through the essays in the coming weeks with students before the November 1. Are there like set dates for that? Is that like the next 2 Saturday sessions? because
Right.
I'm working on some like editing with him now, and I see he needs that. Like he's only done like 1 or 2 drafts, and I'm like, it needs to, but it's good to know that you all will be working with them too on it. When do those sessions happen where you're working on the essay drafts with them?
Yeah, great question. So I designed the syllabus to focus a little bit more heavily on essay writing in the first couple of weeks, just because I know that is something that is more time consuming for the students and a really big piece of what admissions officers are looking for. So next Saturday session, which is October 7th, I have planned to spend the whole day in an essay writing workshop. So I'm going to present them with the prompts that they need for UW-Madison, and also tips for essay writing, and then we'll just spend the rest of the time working. I'll kind of float around the room. And then the following Saturday session, which is October 21st, I'm planning to cover other application components. So like I was talking about with those like extracurriculars and things like that, but I'm also going to give them time to work on essays. So for my own like purposes of giving them feedback, I want them to submit something to me by that next Saturday session of October 7th, so that I can have some feedback to give them before that next Saturday session of the 21st. And then they'll submit their final draft because that October 21st is real close to that November 1st deadline. So if they want additional feedback on the October 21st draft, then they can let me know. Otherwise, they should be good to go. So we'll be spending about the next 2 Saturday sessions working on essays in some capacity.
Wonderful. Thank you.
No problem.
On that note, just piggybacking on what Elizabeth was saying, for senior capstone course, we're really gonna start ramping that up after the November 1st deadline, because they should really only be focusing on that November 1st deadline as far as ITA is concerned. So if you do ask them about senior capstone, they can ignore it basically until after that deadline. So the stuff Elizabeth's asking for is so much more important and timely right now.
Appreciate that, AJ.
Yep, we're currently devoting most of their time on Saturday sessions to college prep. So they're spending, I believe it's an hour and 20 minutes right now with me. But then as we pass that November 1st deadline, we'll kind of switch that division of time over a little bit more as they need to focus on their senior capstone projects.
We're looking if there's any more questions. One more detail that I think I could share is that one unusual thing for this year at ITA is your students will be spending more time outside of ITA working on stuff, taking on independent projects, writing essays. It just doesn't go well when they're all doing that in a big group and they love seeing each other after SRE and in their last year. So, it would help parents and guardians if you just check in with them from time to time, make sure they're doing their ITA homework as well as their school homework. It all matters up until that very last day of graduation. So if you can just help us with that, it would be wonderful.
Oh, and I guess in that same vein too, I'm purposefully in college prep, I'm not trying to give them anything that is busy work or anything that will not further their application process. So if you're finding that your student, they shouldn't be, but if you're finding that they're doing a lot of work for me that is not beneficial to their application in any way, please let me know. Yeah, that should not be the case.
Right. I had one last question about, so with admissions, and the fact that the students are in ITA, they're gonna obviously say that in their extracurriculars, but is there any connection? Obviously, it's not like students can just get into UW-Madison because they're in ITA, but like, is there any weight put on that, like a connection that you all have with the admissions department, or do they look at the fact that students are in ITA as something, something that they at least consider or weigh in some sort of way? I don't know if that's making sense, or if I don't know. I guess I'm wondering what the connection ITA has with supporting our students to actually like get into UW-Madison or get accepted to UW-Madison? Or is it a completely kind of hands-off process? You just get in if you get in?
That's a great question, and I think I can take it. And if I miss anything, I'll ask that Brenda please step in. We do have a partnership with UW-Madison Admissions. ITA is a program of UW-Madison, so our
Right.
goal ultimately is to help students prepare to be college ready, to prepare for life, after high school. And UW-Madison is a big part of that. So we are in communication with UW Admissions, and they have a list of all of our ITA senior students' names. And so we try really hard to make sure that we're in communication about what the students need to be doing and what looks good on the applications. So I would say that ITA does definitely help their chances of admission. But then again, there's no guarantee that just because someone is an ITA student, that means they're going to get to UW-Madison.
Great, thank you for that.
All right. Well, if there are no more questions, I just want to be mindful of everyone's time. So it is a little past 7:30. So I think we'll wrap it up. Just definitely don't forget about the link to the poll that I sent. That will remain open. It should remain open for the next 30 days. If it is closed, let me know. We'll send out an email with that information so you can access it later. As always, feel free to contact any of us if you ever have any questions or if there's anything you or your student needs. Anything else the staff want to add?
I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, and thank you, Liliana, for setting up the Zoom meeting and doing all the background work, and for presenting with me, Elizabeth, and for Excel and Brenda for coming along for the ride and for answering our questions.
Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, and hope you have a great rest of your evening.
Good night, and thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.